I really have to go into some dark places in my mind to tell this story because it was a dark era and a dark time. 1991 in Frankfurt, and I was trying to get to Sachsenhausen. I just left my mate Fat Al and kissed goodbye Arnica at the bridge, and I was trying to find my way to Sachsenhausen to get to the Jugendherberge, which is German for youth hostel. I found myself down the side street, and there's some relevance to this hat I want to show you here. This is a Greek fisherman's hat. Well, it's similar, not quite the same. It looks almost like a North Sea German sailor's hat, but actually it was the Greek fisherman's hat that was on the man that came running towards me looking very distressed with a woman trying to keep up with him. They were looking for something or somebody and they looked completely worried, and I was going up this street in a place that I probably shouldn't have gone. It was the first time I'd ever been to a red light area, and there were these women not much older than me, and some of them probably younger than me actually. It was hard to tell the age because they were covered in makeup and they were showing more leg and more body than face, with lots of hair around. They were working girls. I'd never seen anything like it before coming from New Zealand. They were trying to pull men in for money, but they weren't taking much note of me because I looked different. I had a black cowboy hat that I used to wear. It was the 80s that I'd seen this. I think it was the 80s, or maybe it was 1990. I'd seen this movie called Crocodile Dundee, and I had this romantic notion that I was like him, so I wore this cowboy hat. It got chewed out when I was in Bangkok, but that's a story for another day. But anyway, here I was with this black cowboy hat and black pants and my blue rucksack and my guitar, walking down the street with an eerie feeling that something was not right. And the further I got down it, I started to realise that there was men standing in corners watching me from all around. I could feel eyes upon me, and I didn't feel particularly safe. And my gut instincts were saying, "You've got to get out of this place, mate. You've got to get out of this place." And I was still puzzled to what that man and the woman running out was all about. And then I saw something which I'd never seen in my life before. And to many people it would be maybe quite normal, but for someone from New Zealand, a 27-year-old male that's grown up in the country or in suburbia, which I'd been a bit of both, I'd never seen it before. And it was two policemen, and they had a guy pinned on the ground, and one of them had taken out I think it was a Glock, and the other one was putting handcuffs. So he had a gun to his head while a guy was cuffing him up, but I'd never ever seen that before. It felt surreal to see this. And the further I got down this dark sort of alleyway street, and the more I felt completely unease. And then this guy came up to me. He was Turkish or maybe Greek. He was of darker descent. And he asked me in German, "Was machst du?" I didn't really understand what it meant, and I just said, "Yeah, I'm on my way to the Frankfurt Youth Hostel in Sachsenhausen." Probably gave him more information than he needed to know. And he said he'd help me. He had a friend who had a taxi. I said, "Oh, I don't have any money for a taxi." He said, "You no money?" I said, "I've got no money at all." He said, "How are you going to pay for hostel?" And I said, "Well, I've got enough for just one day, maybe. I'll negotiate it when I get there." And he looked me up and down, and then he just completely disregarded me as if I wasn't there. He just looked at me like I was shit. I was of no value to him. And he said, "Pfft," and then stood there as if I wasn't there, as if I was invisible. So I just kept on looking at him. And I said, "You don't want to help me anymore, no?" And he said, "Pfft." So I carried on, a little bit lost and kind of glad to get away from him. Carried on down the street further, and the further I got, the more I felt weird. Now there were these little rooms you could go into on the side, and men were going in and out of them. They were going in and out, and I didn't know what they were, but I was curious because, I was in this country for adventure. So I went into one of these little rooms, and in these little rooms was lots of small cubicles. At first I thought they were toilets or something. I didn't know. So I ducked inside one, and there was a box of tissues, and there was a little basket, and there was a seat, and like a little TV screen on the door when you close the door. And I thought, what's this? It's like a little movie you could watch. Never seen anything like it before. So I checked out a room, and it had the tissues, and it had the little rubbish tin on the floor and the seat, and they were all the same. And I thought, what's it all about? So I went in one and closed it, and you could lock it, so I locked it, and you're in there, and it goes dark, and then the screen came up, and it had all these different squares of things you could watch, and I couldn't believe it. There was things I'd never seen before, things that blew my mind. Really, really sick, horrible, twisted things. There was a tiny little man, like a little man, small person. Probably he wasn't a midget. Maybe he was more like had that, real small arms, and he was. In one of the pictures, like there was all these different like thumbnails, but there were little videos you could see. It was just something a little bit of, and he was with these three large black women, and there was another guy that was sitting in a chair, and he would have been in his sort of 60s or 70s with black shoes on, and a woman raping him with a bottle, and another woman with a hand around his testicles, and it was just like horrible. There was all this stuff, and there was people peeing on each other, and all this weird, sick stuff, and I realised that you put money into a slot to see something, and I thought, well, I can't afford to put anything in there, but I'm definitely going to come back and put something in because I want to know what the hell one of these is. My curiosity got the better of me, and you could put one German mark in or 2 marks, and all I had in my pocket was I had a few notes and some coins, and I thought, stuff it. There's an old saying, curiosity killed the cat. So I put it in, and the first thing that came up was the selection, and you had a credit, and you could choose from all the stuff, and there was lesbians, and there was gay men, and there was and I just kept on looking at the range, just trying to find a normal woman. Now, I hadn't seen pornography before. I'd seen Playboy magazines and penthouses, but I'd never actually watched anything other than, I think I might have seen a video once, the old videos you could get out. I think we used to occasionally get something like that out, or one of my mates did once. I'd seen it. The only pornography I'd actually seen was at the actual movies where you go, but it was pretty tame. So anyway, I've got my Deutschmark in there, and I think, well, what am I going to watch? And there's going through all these things, and one dark part of my mind's going, I'll watch this bit of weird shit, and then the other part of my mind's going, well, what do I want to watch? And eventually, I ended up. It had this thing in German, and it didn't have any subtitles. But a blonde girl, a blonde woman with big boobs, and I started watching it, and she was like getting serviced by this black guy with this ridiculously large male member, and that just made me feel completely inadequate watching that, and I was not really enjoying it, but then I was kind of getting a bit excited, and then it was fueling something in me I'd never really felt before. And then she has this really fake orgasm, and she's peeing all over herself, and there's pee going everywhere. And I was like, ugh, that's gross. And I thought, these fuckers into just look, really, we don't have that. Well, I'd never seen that before, and that was a Deutschmark wasted, and I came out of this grubby little room, and I felt grubby and horrible. It was like I walked out of there, and I thought, I know there's some parts of my mind that are dark, but it just was like, yuck. If there'd been something that would have been really maybe promiscuous and erotic with a little bit of something hidden in your source, I don't know. It just didn't really, as far as porno goes, it was, I understand people get addicted to pornography, but that sort of, to get addicted to that, you'd have to be, I don't know, maybe you've worn out the synapse in your brain where everything else is now boring you, so you're going to have something more. And at this stage in my life, I had very little. I'd had one girlfriend, or a couple of girlfriends. I'd grown up in a place where it was, you were lucky to get, the bare minimum from somebody. Girls weren't given out where I came from like that. It's like, it was just bizarre. It blew my brain. So I walked out of there and I thought, wow, that's crazy shit. Of course, today it's nothing. Today you can go on your phone and you can see that stuff. You can search it. But back then, this is 1991. This is all to me is completely new. Maybe to the Germans that have been around a while. So I came out of that little room and I put my rucksack on and my guitar and I walked out there. One Deutschmark worse off and feeling a little bit weird. But there's a part of my brain that went, I want to go back into one of those rooms again and put more money in. It had me somehow hooked. Curiosity of stuff, even though it weirded me out, I wanted to go back. And that's a weird thing. It's like, don't know what that was or why that was. But anyway, I was out of the room now and I'm still on the same street, which is dodgy as hell. And now I get down to some shops. And at first of all, I thought there were mannequins in the shop. But they weren't mannequins. They were real live women. And they were like posing in the window half naked. And the window was red, had lights. And they're standing there like mannequins. And if I had the money, I would have gone in there. But you couldn't even get in the door without paying a guy at the front. Now, they were beautiful women, but again, it had this weird energy running through it. I got to the end of the street and I was kind of like, I've got to get out of this place and find Sachsenhausen. That's where the Frankfurt Jugendherberge was, or the Frankfurt Youth Hostel. So I've got to get out of here. I got around the corner and there's a guy he's standing and his knees are bent and he's bent over and he's just let the ground. He's got the heroin stance and he stuck the needle up in his core artery up here. He's pinned himself up there with this needle and he's looking at me with his eyes that are like half dead, like a zombie. And I thought, holy fuck, this place is like a different planet from where I'm come from. And he's looking at me and there's a girl sitting down the ground with stockings with holes on and a pleated sort of like schoolgirl dress, but black boots and long arms with these holes like stockings in her arms with these gloves, and she looks big, like emo type mascara in her eyes. I'm like, fuck, she looked really weird, man. And they're looking at me like zombies, and I just kept on walking, and I felt real freaked out. It was like stuff I wasn't ever used to seeing before, and I tried to whistle, cheer myself up, but I wasn't fooling anybody. My body language was saying, new kid on the block who hasn't got a fucking clue about anything, who shouldn't even be in this land. It was crazy shit. It was like culture shock to the maximum. I got further down that street, which was a side street out, and the further I went, the more junkies there were and the more alcoholics there were. And then I came out onto this park. And holy shit, I later on learnt this place was called Needle Park. It's just a whole park full of junkies. And there's people sharing needles. There's needles on the ground. And the police are walking around completely like it's all acceptable. It's like they know this lot are there. And I'm walking through this park and this girl looks at me and she's got all these colours in her hair. She's a punk rocker. She's got all these like purple, and I've got a picture of her somewhere and I'll try and dig it out sometime. I don't think I'm going to find it today. I know I've got some photos because she was really, really attractive. She was like sort of Harley Quinn sort of look, but she was young, and she saw me and she gave me the head up and she wasn't trying to sell anything. And I said, hello, and she goes, English? And I said, yeah, English. She goes, hello. She comes on over. I forget her name. It will come to me maybe, or maybe it won't, but she comes up to me and she goes, music? And I said, yeah, I'm a musician. I had a guitar with me and I had a harmonica. And I said, yeah, musician. She goes, I love music. And I said, can you sing? And she goes, yeah. And I said, fantastic. Well, I wasn't in the mood for making any music where I was right now. All I was thinking was, where the hell is the Frankfurt Youth Hostel? And this park that I just walked into, which I could have walked out of, was also, in some morbid way, was fascinating me. And I said to her, what is this place? She goes, Needle Park. So I said, I've never seen a place like this where I come from. She said, I'll show you. So she's walking around and she's all positive and like upbeat and sort of dancing, and she's young and vibrant. She must have been only like 21, 22. I'm 27, so she's younger than me. She's quite tall. She's taller than me, and she's really bouncy and positive. I'm thinking either she's high on something or she's just one of those naturally over happy people. So she's going around and people are saying hi to her. I can't remember her name. Normally I'm good with names of people that pass, but for some reason it just eludes me. It was a European name, and maybe it comes as I tell the story. She was bouncing off everybody, and then there was a guy sitting down in a seat with another guy, and this guy by the seat was black, and the guy next to him was just out of it. And she goes running up to this guy and sits right next to him and goes, "Hello," and he looks around at her like this, and he greets her, and she does something with her hands with him and some weird thing, and she goes, "This is my friend, introduce me," and he goes in a real American voice, "You play that thing, man?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "You play blues?" And I said, "Yeah, I do play the blues, actually." He goes, "Awesome." And she goes, he can sing. And he starts singing from his chair. He starts singing with this amazing voice that should be on stage, just in this little area. And if you drunk in and out of it, people are like perk up straight away. He's got a booming voice. I said, "Bro, you can sing, man." He goes, "Yeah, in another lifetime I did." I said, "You're not singing anymore?" He goes, "Nah, man." And she goes, "He's a junkie." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah, I'm a junkie." And she goes, "Yeah, he's cooked all the time." And I said, "Really, bro?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, what brought you over here? And his story was that he was in the military, and he was based in Kaiserslautern in the military, and he got discharged for doing something wrong or bad, I don't know what that was, and found his way to Frankfurt. And he went on a big bender drinking in Frankfurt, in Sachsenhausen, where I was on my way to, and then ended up getting an addiction to heroin, and ended up having a hustle where he was selling stuff and using that to pay for his habit. And like 10 years had gone by and he was still stuck there. He was in his sort of late 30s. So that was kind of weird. Don't remember his name either. And anyway, me and this interesting woman carried on through Needle Park, and it was really, really becoming quite distressing seeing all these people looking so sick. Some of them were putting the needle in their friends, some were putting it in their groins, like some were putting it in their ankles. Some people had tracks all down their hands, like their arms covered in tracks, and it just was a weird sensation to be in these Walking Dead. I felt like it was the apocalypse of the zombies. There was people walking around with the dribble coming out their mouth, and it's the middle of winter, and people hardly clad, people crying, people holding their hands out begging for something. Now we got to the end of the park, and there was a child of about 9 years old who was crying, walking around, maybe younger, might have been only 8, crying. And the girl with me, she goes straight up to him, she goes, "Was ist los? What's the problem?" And he goes, "Mama, Papa." And he was a cute little kid, he was quite dark. And I said to him, "You speak English?" And he goes, "English." And she said he's actually Turkish, he speaks better English than he speaks German. And I said, "Okay." I said, what's the trouble?" She said, "He's lost his mother and father." And suddenly I realised that he was wearing a smaller version of a hat like this. And I remembered seeing this couple run towards me at the beginning of when I went down the alley. And I said, "Is your papa wear a hat?" Like I pointed to his hat. "Is your hat like a hat like your hat is?" And he goes, "Yeah, yeah." And I said, "Is your mama wearing black?" He goes, "Yeah, black." And I said, "I think I've seen their parents. I think I've seen them running out of the street around the corner. They were running and they looked like they were looking for somebody." And I said, what happened?" He said, "We got chased by the police and we got separated." Because my next thing was to tell her we're going to have to go to the police if this kid's lost. And that's what I was going to say. I said, why were you chased?" And he said, "Ausländer. Wir sind Aus." He spoke in German. "We're Ausländers," which means, Ausländers means, if you're German you'll know what it means. What does it mean in English? Refugees, I guess, but they weren't supposed to be there, and the police had chased them for some reason. And I said, "I think I know which direction your parents have gone." And it's probably been half an hour's gone by now, maybe 30 minutes since I saw them. And if you want, I'll try and help you find them. And this new girl that I'd met, or young lady, she was well on board with that. She goes, yeah, let's do this. So we went all the way back from where I come through Needle Park, back past all the wank booths. That's what I ended up calling these places, because that's basically what they were. You go in there and you put your money down and watch whatever your thing was, whatever was your bag, jerk off and stick it into one of those papers they had, or tissues, and then you stuck it in the basket and went out. Disgusting, I know, but that's what they had. It was a business. And I guess in a way it's no more disgusting than anything else that goes on in this world with us humans. So we carried on past there and right down past all the people, and we were walking quite fast now. And then we got onto the next street around the corner. We walked past all the other things I'd seen, going right back, and we come to the very end where I'd last seen their parents, and I said, this is where I last saw the person I think was your mother and your father. And I said, they were running this way fast. And she said, that way there is the Turkish part of town, where the Turks are. It's where you can get a kebab or a Turkish meal. I said, let's go down this end. So we started going down there. When we went down there, we only took us like another 5 minutes. Everybody looked the same. They all looked similar. So I wouldn't have been able to distinguish the difference between who his father was and another man. And a lot of them were wearing hats like this. And some of them were also wearing black and white scarves. I don't know what that was about. We're walking down the very end there, and there's an imbus that's selling Turkish stuff, and there's some talking quite loud inside, and it perked us up. So we went on over there, and I saw the back of a hat on somebody's head like this, talking, and a woman. I thought, that's it. And I went racing on over there, and when the guy turned around, he was a completely different guy. He was a real fat face, and he looked at me like, was machst du, he said in German. Was machst, what are you doing? And I said, Entschuldigung Sie bitte. That's German for I'm sorry. I thought it was this guy. And then I said, you speak English? And he said, yes. And I said, I'm looking for another man that's got a hat like this and a woman. I think this is their son. He's lost. And he says, the couple just came in here like that. I said, where are they going? He said, across the street. And they had coffee. They went over to ask some questions. So we went across the street. And there was another guy with a hat on there. And when he turned around, it was the guy. And I said, have you lost your son? And the mother turned around and she goes, yeah. I said, stay there. And they didn't. They followed me out. And as I came out, the woman I've been with was on the street with this boy. He was now crying. And they go running up to this boy and they just pick him up. And the mother's like got tears streaming down the face. And the father's got tears streaming down his face. And the boy's hugging the mother and the father. We've actually reunited this boy. And then the father turns round to me and he goes, thank you so much. And I told him the whole story. Well, he was a refugee and she was a refugee, and they didn't have much money or anything, but they were so grateful. They were so grateful for what had happened. And the woman that I was with, she was also an integral part of it happening. She made as much of it happen as me, and probably more. I don't know that I would have paid so much attention. I think I would have probably just taken the boy to the police, but she was really, really good. I lost contact with her for that period of time, but I caught up with her later on, and I caught up with her in the youth hostel. So I said goodbye to those guys. I got to the youth hostel, and by that time it was about, I don't know, maybe midday almost, not quite. I'd had fish for breakfast that I'd caught that morning with Fat Al, and I'd shared it with him. He'd eaten one fillet and I'd had half, and I'd had half a fillet and he'd had a whole fillet, and I'd given, so he'd had quite a bit, and I was still quite hungry. And I was now making my way to the hostel, but before I'd left, the guy that, the refugee and the family, they had shouted me a falafel, was it? A falafel, I think it's called, and I'd eaten that then. It was really, really nice. And then I made my way to the youth hostel. Now when I got there, I met a guy called Stuart Antilles, and Stuart was Jewish from Chicago, and him and I'm not going to tell too much about that because that's a story really for another day, but that there was the beginning of an incredible business relationship, playing music in so many places and so much unfolding, and I'm still good friends with him today. But I met him at that youth hostel. I'm probably going to stop there because It's late again tonight and I'm pretty tired. I need to get some sleep. But I will give you part 3 of this. I hope you're enjoying these throwbacks, and we'll see you brothers in the next one, and the occasional sister watching. And remember, check on a brother if you know a brother's struggling. You know a brother's struggling with anything right now. Share one of these throwbacks with them. Maybe it might help cheer them up. This one's been a bit of a dark one. I know there'll be some more that are a bit more funny and upbeat than this one, but that's just life. Life isn't always funny and upbeat. There's dark moments and weird moments, and there's cool moments, and this has been one of those moments I've shared with you. Go steady, and I'll see you next Project Cover videos. Okay, see you later.